Apologies, I've just realised I've been muted the entire time. Good afternoon, members, and welcome to this afternoon's meeting of the Lincolnshire Schools Forum. We shall now start with agenda item 1, which is appointment of chairman. Please may I seek nominations for the chairman of the Lincolnshire Schools Forum for the year 2025-26. Are there any nominations? Are there any nominations for the chairman? Anybody? Can we seek a nomination for a temporary chairman for this meeting? Anybody? Just bear with me one moment. Is there anyone? Is Martin?
Good afternoon, Rachel. Can I just seek a clarification?
Yes.
Am I able to nominate anybody as AD for education or not? Temporarily. I was only going to suggest somebody temporarily covering the meeting today.
Let me just check. We believe that the nomination needs to come from the membership of the forum.
Okay, so I'm going to make a plea then by not breaching any constitution. Could I ask a willing volunteer from our head teachers and sector leaders, Martin, Michelle, Laura, etc.? Is there anybody willing to temporarily chair for today, please?
I will do that for today. Martin, it's Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. Very much appreciated.
Unless anyone else is stepping forward, because I'm just frantically looking through my emails on my phone now to find the script that was sent out this morning.
I can resend it to you.
It's all right, I've got it. Thank you.
You've got it.
Thanks, Michelle.
Is there a seconder for Michelle? Someone like to second Michelle as?
I'm happy to second.
Martin, thank you, and Laura, thank you very much. All in favour, please. If you can just either, I can see hands in favour. Thank you very much, Michelle. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Good afternoon, members, and welcome to this afternoon's meeting of the Lincolnshire Schools Forum. Rachel, I've just noticed that the minutes you sent me said Lincolnshire Health and Wellbeing Board. You have sent me the right script, haven't you?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, if just pick up where it says.
We shall now start with agenda item 1, appointment of chairman. So I'm temporary for today. So welcome to everyone's virtual meeting for the Lincolnshire School Forum. My name is Michelle Anderson. I'm the elected representative for Maintained Secondary Schools and temporary chairman for today's meeting of the forum. Before we begin, we have some matters of procedure to mention. Today's proceedings will be audio broadcast and recorded. When invited to speak by the chairman, members and officers should unmute their microphones and switch on their video. When the member or officer has finished speaking, they should mute their microphone or switch off the video. If during the debate a member or officer would like to ask a further question or raise a point, they are requested to use the chat function and to just write "speak" as a comment. Members are requested to indicate using the chat function if they are leaving the meeting. If members lose connection during the meeting, it is recommended that they end the call using the red phone icon and rejoin the meeting link using the link provided. If the chairman is made aware that the meeting is not accessible to the public through remote means, or that members of the forum have lost their connection due to any technological or other failure of provision, the chairman shall adjourn the meeting immediately for 5 minutes to allow all members time to log in. So moving on to item number 2, it is election of the vice chairman. So please may I seek nominations for vice chairman for 25-26, but possibly this could also be a temporary for today as well, I assume, Rachel. Hello?
Sorry, I'm having headset issues. Yes, that's correct. It can just be for this meeting only on a temporary basis.
So do we have any nominations for temporarily today as vice chair of the meeting? Rachel, with the appointment of...
Michelle, put me down for it, Steve Thompson.
Thank you, Steve.
No problem.
Thank you. Are there any other colleagues that wish to stand for the temporary nomination today? So we need to vote this, I think, do we, Rachel?
Yes, please. Do we have a seconder? Yes, Tristan seconding. Thank you very much. Yes, so all those in favour, please raise your hand or indicate on the screen. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you, that is carried. Shall we now move on to the roll call, Rachel? When your name is read out, can you please indicate by saying "here" clearly?
Thank you. Laura Cook. Here. Thank you. Jeanette Kennedy.
Here.
Tony Stevens.
Here.
Sorry. Oh. Callum Clay. Laura Martin.
Here.
Michelle Anderson.
Here.
Andrew Everard.
Here.
Stephen Thompson.
Here.
Jessica Leonard.
Here.
Martin McEwen.
Here.
Philip Dickinson. Chris Fitzpatrick. Tristan Revel.
Here.
Andy Rush.
Here.
Andy Watt. Peter Tomlinson. And that is everyone. I can also advise that the following officers are present at this meeting: Mott Popplewell, Strategic Finance Lead for Children's Services, Elizabeth Bowes, Strategic Finance Manager, Schools Finance Team, Martin Smith, Assistant Director for Children's Education, and Geraldine O'Neill, Sustainability and Development Manager. Is there anyone participating today that's not had their name called out? Geraldine.
Geraldine Wilders, Head of Service for Schools Strategy, in attendance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. Moving on to item number 3, are there any apologies for absence or replacement members? Rachel, have we had any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chairman. We have received apologies from Alan Howe and Gavin Booth.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 4, declarations of members' interest. Do members have any interests they wish to declare? If so, can you please type speak in the chat function? I'm not seeing anything, Rachel, are you?
I'm not seeing anything either.
Lovely. Let's move on to item number 5. Minutes of the Lincolnshire Schools Forum meeting held on the 16th of January 2025. These can be found on pages 7 to 14 of the agenda pack. I would like to propose the minutes as a correct record. Do I have a seconder? Lovely. Thank you, Tristan. Rachel, did you see that too? Rachel? Thank you, Tristan. It's
Yes,
therefore
sorry.
proposed, that's quite all right. It's therefore proposed and seconded that the minutes be approved. Do we have anyone wishing to abstain? Again, Rachel, I'm not seeing any notification of abstentions. Are you?
I'm not seeing any either, thank you.
No. Do we have any of the members of the forum who are against the proposal? Again, Rachel, I'm not seeing anything.
I'm not seeing any hands either.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So moving on to item number 6. I would like to pay thanks to those members of the forum whose term of office has come to an end, and similarly welcome our new members and congratulate them on their election. Joining us today, we have Laura Cook representing Nursery, Stephen Thompson representing Secondary Academy Governors, Jessica Leonard and Martin McCowan representing Secondary Academy Head Teachers, Andy Rush representing Special Academies Head Teachers. I hope that I've made those pronunciations correctly, but please do tell me if I haven't. Thank you. Additionally, I would like to inform the forum that Gavin Booth has formally stepped down from the Schools Forum. Over the years, he has helped to guide the forum through many important decisions which demonstrated his commitment to the education community in Lincolnshire. On behalf of all members, we extend our appreciation for his leadership and dedication and service as chair. Can I also reinforce that dedication and vote of thanks? It's been a pleasure working for a number of years with Martin on the forums, Gavin on the forum, so thank you very much. Can you make sure that those votes of thanks are passed on to Gavin, please, Rachel?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 7, a review of the Lincolnshire Schools Forum Constitution and Membership. I'd like to invite Lizzie Bowers, Strategic Finance Manager, Schools Finance Team, to present the report. Thank you, Lizzie.
Thank you, Michelle. Good afternoon, everybody. So the purpose of the report is to provide the forum with an update to Lincolnshire Schools Constitution and Membership as detailed in Appendix A. The Schools Forum and its constitution are governed by a framework of legislation, regulations and terms of reference, including the Schools Forum regulations and the Schools and Early Years Finance regulations. These regulations have been recently updated to reflect changes introduced by the School and Early Years Finance Regulations 2025 and the Procurement Act 2023, as outlined on page 16 of the report. Appendix A provides further information on the constitution and membership of the Schools Forum. The membership composition has been reviewed and updated to reflect the current position as detailed in section 4.4 on page 20. The membership structure for 25-26 remains unchanged to maintain a balanced and proportionate representation of each school category relative to the total number of schools. Returning to the main body of the report, the terms of reference comprise 7 areas as detailed on page 16. The composition of the forum and terms of reference are reviewed on an annual basis, ready for the new academic year. As part of this annual review, we are required to undertake an annual assessment of the Schools Forum operations and effectiveness based on the Schools Forum self-assessment toolkit that is detailed in Appendix B. The Executive Council for Children's Services will be updated on the annual review, and the Schools Forum is asked to note the content of the report and endorse the updated constitution and membership as detailed in Appendix A.
Thank you very much, Lizzie. Can you please, apologies for the sound of my printer, by the way, I can't juggle multiple screens, so I'm happy to print off the report so I can keep up. Do we have any questions of Lizzie of the report that she's just presented? I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. Are you, Rachel?
I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Thank you. Are there any discussion points that forum members wish to make on this item? No, likewise, Rachel, I'm not seeing any hands. Are you?
I'm not seeing anything, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. The recommendation is to note the contents of the report and endorse the updated constitution and membership document as detailed at Appendix A to the report. I propose we have done that. Does anyone dissent? Rachel, are you seeing any hands up?
Again, no indications or notifications on my screen.
Lovely, thank you very much. And moving on then to item 8, schools funding update. I'd like to invite Mark Popperwell, Strategic Finance Lead, Children's Services, to present his report. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. So yes, a school funded update. So by way of introduction, the national funding formula was introduced in 1819. The main purpose of that was to try and ensure fair and consistent funding across all mainstream schools across the country. And since its introduction, local authorities are being continued to be responsible and in terms of having its decision-making powers in terms of setting school budgets at a local level. However, the local authorities were strongly encouraged to move to that national funding formula arrangements. To accelerate this, the DfE has introduced additional transitional requirements for all local authorities to bring their formulas closer to the national funding formula by way of a 10% measure to each year. Where they're determining those local authorities in terms of mirroring the local authority, mirroring the national funding formula, that's within a 2.5% plus or minus parameter. From a council perspective here in Lincolnshire, we are one of those local authorities mirroring the national funding formula. We haven't got updated information for 25-26, but 123 local authorities were mirroring the national funding formula in 24-25. In terms of the core principles of the government's national funding formula, that did remain the same in 25-26. And Lincolnshire mainstream schools continue to adopt the national funding formula subject to the affordability. And just by way of sort of reinforcing this element for new members, affordability challenges mainly arise from the government's use of lagged funding, whereby the dedicated schools grant is funded through lagged data. So, for example, October 23 census, but our funding formula has to use the latest census, which would be October 24 for 25-26 arrangements. And what we've seen, particularly since the pandemic, quite a significant increase in free school meals, and that therefore creates this lag, which then creates affordability challenges. And this is not immune just to Lincolnshire. This is across the country. So in 25-26, the affordability gap to fully implement the national funding formula with a 0% minimum funding guarantee was just short of 1.9 million. That was addressed through a school block transfer, so a school's growth fund budget transfer within the school's block of 801,000, and a downward adjustment of the age-weighted pupil unit values across the primary and secondary sector by 0.361%. Lincolnshire Schools Forum also agreed back in the November meeting, following consultation with schools, a 0.5% school block transfer to the high needs block to support a number of high needs initiatives in terms of supporting Lincolnshire achieve a sustainable high needs position. That equated to an amount of 2.8 million, and I'll refer to that later on in the report, which resulted in a downward adjustment of 1.764 overall in the year RPU funding for 25-26. The school block transfer to high needs is a 1-year only agreement, and the local authority will be considering 26-27 arrangements in due course. On the 30th of June, an announcement has been made by the department regarding the timing of the summer spending review, meaning that the publication of the 26-27 allocations and guidance won't be published until the autumn now. Typically, that's been shared with us just before the summer break. This will therefore shorten the time in terms of local authorities, in terms of digesting what that means and then planning for the 26-27 funding arrangements. A summary policy document has set out the parameters of the 26-27 funding arrangements at a high level. So to confirm that there are no changes to the formula factor structure, and school budgets, and also I should say the school budget support grant and national insurance employer changes will be rolled into the national funding formula for 26-27 as expected. And there'll also be the tightening of the arrangements that I've referred to in terms of making sure local authorities not adopting the national funding formula at the moment will have to move closer to that by 10%. But at this stage, total funding through the national funding formula and the formula factor values themselves have not been confirmed and won't be, unfortunately, until the autumn period. So then going back to page 36, school funding announcements, what we've seen over the last few months is quite a number of funding updates, and this report is trying to draw those out for your awareness and consideration. And this is in addition to what was those disclosed back in the January 25 forum meeting. So the school teachers review body have recommended a teachers pay award of 4% from September 25, and the support staff have been offered a 3.2% pay rise under the latest pay offer. The DfE have indicated that schools have capacity to spend a further 0.8% on average of total expenditure in 25-26, which they've determined at a value of 400 million at a national level. What this represents is 1.3% worth of that pay award relating to the teachers and support staff, which schools are actually required as part of the arrangements to meet that from their existing budgets. So 1.3% of the latest pay award are required to be met from existing budgets devolved to schools for 25-26. Schools are also required to meet the first 1% of the pay award through improved productivity and smarter spending. And that, again, that's something that the government have made reference to a number of times. And in terms of the some of those smarter spendings is something whereby the government have been pushing a number of matters, such as sort of the energy arrangements, to see if there can be sort of centralised arrangements to drive efficiencies across the schools and in helping them do that. So the remainder of the cost is to be met from a separate grant, and that's referred to the school's budget support grant. Table 1 provides that sort of summary position in terms of how that the different components of that are funded, and clearly at a school level, it's been determined at a national level, but obviously at school level, that impact is likely to be slightly different, and obviously will need to be modelled in to see the overall impact at that local school level. So the DfE are providing funding to support the remaining element of that pay award via this grant. Nationally, that is 650 million across the sectors, and that is on a point, it is reassuring. It is a change in that position from what the DfE stance was at the start of the year, where actually the pay award would not be funded. So reassuring that some monies has been found to meet that cost. So the funding takes account of both the local government employers pay offer in respect to support staff, which would be a full-year effect, and then the teachers pay award, which would be representing 7 months costs. And this is in addition to the original 2.3 billion increase in funding to across schools nationally, rising to 63.9 billion. Schools funding allocations will use the October 24 census, And within the document, there is a calculator tool because school individual allocations haven't been confirmed as yet, but schools can use that as a basis for determining what their funding is likely to be for 25-26. Those amounts, monetary amounts, are actually detailed on page 38 of this report. Funding for special schools and alternative provision schools will be made through the Core Schools budget grant, which is an extension of the existing arrangements in place for 25-26. This will be an amount of £339 per place to recognise that additional cost. The council is proposing to use the DFE place amount in 25-26 to distribute the funding. This treatment is aligned to the current treatment that the local authority is adopting that was used in the publication of the budget shares process. Just to note, the council is currently making an assessment of the affordability of the pay award in relating to this sector in accordance with the local funding formula that is set. If I then move on to the national insurance contributions, again, you'll all be aware of the government's change in terms of the employee national insurance, in terms of the increased rate and then the reduced threshold at which employee contributions will apply. To offset this cost, the DFE obviously referred to a separate grant, and schools will be aware of that grant allocation. Nationally, it's 1 billion for 25-26. 930 million of that will be allocated to mainstream schools and special schools, with the remainder being picked up by the other sectors. As with other similar grants, the funding for mainstream schools will be incorporated into the national funding for 26-27. So again, streamlining those grants, and that will be the case for the Core Schools budget grant as well, but reflecting 12/12 of the teachers' pay award. The calculation of the funding will be based on the October 24 census, as previously referred in the pay award, and as you can see on the top of bottom of 38 and top of page 39, you'll see the amounts that have been determined. Overall, for Lincolnshire mainstream schools, that equates just short of £10 million, and there's a link in the report that actually shows the individual school allocations to assist your budgeting. For special and alternative provision, again, similar approaches being applied. So again, an extension of the Core Schools budget grant, an additional amount of 496 per place will be applied. And again, Lincolnshire will be looking to adopt the DFE approach and passporting that monies on in full. If I then move on to the early years sector, so particularly our maintained primary schools and academy primary schools with a designated nursery class or nursery schools. A grant of 40 million, which is a standalone grant relating to the early years national teachers pay grant, and that will support the provision relating to increase in national insurance costs and also the teachers pay award from September. Those monies will be devolved out on a per part-time equivalent rate, and those amounts are detailed there for 25-26. And overall, Lincolnshire's allocation is just short of 300,000 for that. I'll then refer on to the another grant that's been rolled out, and it's for 25-26 only, on top of page 40, relating to the early years expansion grant. So 75 million nationally has been made available, and this is to support the rollout of the government's expansion of working 2-year-olds and under 2 working parents entitlement from September 25. So this is a separate grant from the core rates, universal rates allocated to the sector. It won't be part of future baselines. It is only a one-off grant, and that grant amount is 928,000. And again, Lincolnshire will be using a flat rate per part-time equivalent on the basis of its allocation methodology. So within the summer spending announcements, you'll be aware of the expanding entitlement for free school meals for those in receipt of universal credit from September 26. Children currently eligible are only those that on universal credit have an income of less than 7,400. The entitlement extension won't be applying that arrangement for the funding for the actual free school meals element. Schools will, however, not attract additional pupil premium or through the National Funding Formula deprivation through the existing free school meals entitlement. So it doesn't cover the breadth of what the current free school meal eligibility is. It will only pick up the meal cost for those that have income above that level. There is free school meal protection, transitional protection in place at the moment in terms of the rollout of universal credit, and that will end in September of 26 and be replaced by this new eligibility for free school meals. There'll be an assessment that takes place for all of those children, and in the paragraph there in the middle of page 40, it talks about the steps that we will be doing in terms of making an assessment in terms of their eligibility, and obviously wanting to ensure that Lincolnshire maximises the overall funding coming into its schools. Further funding further announcements are likely to be in the autumn term relating to this, and funding for 26-27 will be through a separate grant, so it won't be through the national funding formula at the moment due to the lagged arrangements, and obviously then the future arrangements of that will be set out in due course. Moving then on to pupil premium rates, so they've been announced and they will be continuing in 25-26 financial year, and they'll be increased by 2.39% compared to the prior year levels. And you can see on the top of page 40 and 41, bottom of page 40, top of page 41, the details of what those rates are. Universal infant free school meals, that's increasing from £2.58 to £2.61, and I know this is something that schools, due to the rurality, feel that it is insufficient, but a rather modest increase, what we've seen here, unfortunately. PE and sport in the primary schools, that does remain unchanged for 25-26 academic year, and the details are set out on that. Payment details will change from September. They'll receive 2 equal payments, so 50% eligibility funding will be paid in the autumn, and then another 50% in the spring. If I then move on to the actual spending review that took place on the 11th of June, drawing out sort of these key sort of related announcements relating to education. And the first one relates to the SEND reforms. So within the overall announcement, there was this transformational funding to support reform within the public services, particularly a focus on prevention. And within that, there was 760 million relating to special educational needs and disability system, with obviously the outlook or what the direction of travel is to ensure that we develop a more inclusive system, delivers better outcomes for the children, and sector reform taking place within the SEND system. And those will be outlined within the school's white paper to be published in the autumn term. Moving on to page 42, it looks at the core spending powers relating to education, and a spending review indicates a 4.7 billion cash increase per year by 28-29, average real-term growth of 1.1. However, as I say, in terms of what this means for individual schools funding, it won't be known until the autumn period. But what I would say is that it is a follow-on from the sort of the tightening of the fiscal policy relating to overall schools funding. Much more sort of challenging times ahead, unfortunately. In terms of education funding on capital, annual maintenance, so this relates to sort of conditions funding, that will be increasing in line with inflation, rising to 2.3 billion in 29-30 to improve the school's estate. And also about basic need requirements. So these are the future demographic requirements to ensure sufficiency of school places across areas. Again, a similar level of funding to what we're seeing at the moment on a national level. Drawing out the other significant announcement was relating to the Dedicated Schools Grant override extension. The current extension was due to expire at the end of this financial year in March 26, but it's been now confirmed to end in 27-28 financial year. And basically what the override is there, it prevents local authorities from offsetting dedicated schools grant overspends and deficits against that of the council funding, and it's held in a separate reserves and clearly earmarked. The spending review recognised the unsustainable LA pressure in terms of the SEND system and what impact that was having on the dedicated schools grant, and the scale of the deficits obviously having a huge impact in terms of local government finances, particularly whereby there is no sustainable recovery plan, and the impact that then has on the actual council's operating model as well. But clearly the override and pushing it back as demand still rises and it still outstrips funding, this obviously poses great challenges for local authorities going forward. But fundamentally the schools white paper will include aspects in terms of how local authorities will be supported with the reforms, and also how it's going to manage the SEND deficits. And just for the scale, and I know I've referred to this previously, but this value keeps increasing, and it's been referred that the county councils network have recently forecast almost 6 billion nationally in DSG deficits by March 26 from the SEND pressures, which shows the scale of the challenges ahead and how those can be overcome. From a local perspective, Lincolnshire is facing similar difficulties on its DSG in terms of particularly the high needs spending. The high needs block overspent last year by 16.9 million. Fortunately, that was covered off by one-off DSG reserves that we was hoping to support over the medium term. But unfortunately, that pretty much used all of the reserves up, barring 234,000. So Lincolnshire did avoid going into a structural deficit on its dedicated schools grant. However, even allowing for all the mitigations, the schools block transfer that took place in 25-26, the council is expected to go into a material DSG deficit by the end of 25-26. I thought it was helpful sort of drawing out some of those initiatives that we talked about, which are in on page 43 and listed in bullet points in terms of what that school block transfer was supporting. So some of those additional high needs initiatives relating to workforce development, the pupil reintegrations, transitions, behaviour support, the inclusion quality effectiveness team, and then the rollout of the SEND hubs within mainstream schools, of which 8 academy mainstream schools have had theirs agreed by the DfE, and 5 maintained mainstream schools as well. And we're seeing this is going to be a highly cost-effective solution, whilst also adding the value in terms of meeting those pupils' needs as well. So certainly something there to support the dedicated schools grant in terms of that sustainability. But clearly what we have got is some difficult decisions required going forward on all aspects of the high needs spending. And as officers, we are closely scrutinising all areas of spending, central budgets, how we devolve our funding out to ensure that we are securing sort of value for money and it is being spent to deliver those most effective outcomes. I wanted to draw your attention on the mainstream SEND funding. So currently mainstream top-up funding and targeted funding arrangements are currently being reviewed, particularly down to the significant growth that we are seeing in this area. Targeted funding, we're in that top quartile in terms of spending. So this is a local decision in terms of support and inclusion. And this is, as I say, a significant cost and significant growth in costs that officers are currently reviewing and assessing, and how that links in with the mainstream top-up funding. We're at the early stages of consideration with this, and with the planned announcements of the reforms and the schools white paper to be published in the autumn. It's important that we are reflective of that national position and direction to travel. Making any changes in this area there will be that schools collaboration. There will be a requirement to consult, and obviously it is a policy decision when making changes. So schools are advised to plan for the current indicative funding arrangements for 25-26 financial year. However, that long-term certainty cannot be provided at this stage, but where changes do take place at an individual school level, transitional protection will be there to try and support schools over that short to medium term. But clearly it is an area that we're having to focus on due to the severity of the spending. So moving on to page 45, in terms of next steps, we'll be continuing to review the government's publications that implicate the 25-26 and future years funding. We'll be obviously undertaking modelling to determine the financial impact of such announcements, particularly in the autumn term when the information is, or more detailed information is released, in particular the school's white paper in terms of what that means for Lincolnshire, and that may mean having an additional date in the autumn term with the forum to talk through what this means for Lincolnshire. So in conclusion, the additional grants for schools in response to the employer's national insurance changes and the partly funding of the pay award is welcomed. Although, as I set out at the start, the school's fiscal funding policy does remain tight for 25-26. I know we are seeing that within our maintained schools. And obviously with the government setting those efficiency targets. So it is very much a challenging position at a school level, and also from a council system-wide arrangement as well, particularly with the spending on high needs as well. Okay, thank you, Chair. That concludes my update. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, for an incredibly comprehensive report for the forum. Do we have any questions from forum members? Tristan?
Hi, thanks, Mark. Just wanted to know, when do you anticipate being able to consult with schools on a reduction in the mainstream SEND funding? I just asked because at the recent head teachers briefing we had, head teachers had letters regarding EHCP funding for the following year, and the SEND team, which had sent those out, included a line in their letter which was unusual, and it was basically saying we're under consultation about this, and you've made it very clear that we're not consulting on it yet, but we're going to be. So we all know it's coming, but when do you anticipate that consultation coming about? Should head teachers be factoring in? Because obviously we need this, efficiency savings are all well and good, but we know that in schools that spend most of their money on staff, it's staff and it's redundancies, and we need a time frame within which to manage those in the most effective way possible, both for pupil outcomes. But that if we're faced with a short-term turnaround to make those redundancies, we'll have to make more redundancies to save the money to pay for the redundancies. I mean, we don't want to face that squeeze. So I know I'm asking the impossible, but when do you anticipate that time frame to come into view so that trustees and head teachers can make those decisions?
Of course, yeah. So the communication originally came during the budget shares publication back in February, whereby we had some ambitious targets in terms of, okay, then because of the rapid level of expenditure and the scale of the high needs block, we obviously needed to do something at speed, and we was aiming for that September, and obviously a number of schools have raised this was September 25, and having had a working group, etc., and looking at the options and the scale of it, clearly we need more time to be able to respond to that. So in terms of that narrative on page 44, so it's really about trying to say to schools, you need to be aware that there is a review going on. Ideally, we'll be looking to engage with schools in the autumn, but it's going to be fundamental to make sure that it aligns to what the national direction of travel is. So again, it's sort of linking between those to make sure that we're not going to do something that then is subsequently going to be changed with any national direction. So we will be looking to engage, and we'll be looking to we've got a working group, schools working group, of which we'll be looking to progress with that in terms of those options. And I totally 100% agree with you, is that, and this is something that we've always done when we've made changes, is to make sure it's in a planned and coordinated way, so it doesn't significantly change schools' budgets overnight. Transitional protection will be in place, and to enable that change to be made in a structured and planned way, noting that the scale of the pressures are still going up. So that'll be the balance that we'll be looking to do, and that'll be part of considerations in that consultation in terms of the transitional protection that we put in place, but also feedback from working group and the schools in terms of, okay, what is the time frame for making those changes, and whether it is 1 year, 2 year protection arrangements to get to that point. So fully understanding that you do need it in a planned and coordinated way, hearing that loud and clear, that's what we would look to do in any case. But it's just making schools aware that in the obviously the medium to longer term, there is likely to be changes locally that we need to look to do, but also on a national change in level. And then it's just really, I guess, making schools sighted on that, and also planning for potential changes. And that's where the scenario planning, which I know schools actively encouraged to do when you do, I'd be encouraging you to do that to enable steps to be taken to address that when this comes. So really it's about, and there's different approaches in terms of how monies are deployed across local authorities, and it's really about how we can develop an approach that gives the flexibilities for schools to meet the needs of those children in those schools. And it's about then not only looking at this element, but also the bigger picture in terms of, as we know, the independent sector, how we've had significant demand in that area, and that has been a huge cost increase to Lincolnshire, and one of the reasons for the in-year deficits. So it's really looking at the whole bigger picture when we are looking at this, although this is an area that we are looking at, but we are looking at the bigger picture as well in terms of how we can make sort of significant change. Mainstream hubs is one of those arrangements. AP hubs will be another thing. So it's really about how we can better support schools with the devolved funding to meet those pupils' needs, whilst also being reflective of where we are in terms of our spending arrangements. And that also looks at other areas of spending that we do. So it's not just looking at schools spending or devolved funding to schools, it's also looking at some of those services that we provide to schools, and it's about assessing the value for money on those too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. Martin?
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon. Just a couple of bits I just wanted to mention again. I think they were kind of asked as well in the previous question and kind of answered too, but I just kind of a couple of notes that I'd made. A little bit disappointed with the use of words such as improved productivity and smarter spending. I find them, I just have all these horrible images that kind of come to the forefront of asking our teachers to teach quicker and with more children. And the smarter spending actually suggesting that schools are just frivolous with their monies and kind of throwing it away. And I think while the efficiencies kind of savings within there are something I know that we all have to kind of suck up and just get on with, I completely get it. But I think the suggestion of we're just going to have to be spending things, the smarter spending in effect goes back to the tightening up the staff teacher ratios, looking at redundancies and so on, because while 1% in a lot of people may sound, well, that's not going to be that much, for actually that's an awful lot of money for a lot of schools. So I do think there's a wording bit in there that could be considered. The other bits I do have the concern of, I completely get the transformational kind of impact the large scale funding is going to have. And with this, and I know that everybody's kind of looking forward to what those proposals are going to look like going forward. But just like that was mentioned a minute ago, the deficit that was had within that the high needs block last year, along with the remaining reserves that are there, for us, for the system to get to that transformational area, is going to be, you know, it also says kind of difficult decisions. The difficult decisions aren't just to kind of change something. There's going to be a potentially massive upheaval, because it's not just going a little bit towards that. The transformational change means that everything is thrown up in the air and kind of starting from scratch again. Otherwise, it doesn't even scratch the surface. And the other bit I was a little bit disappointed to see in there is, again, the mention of outcomes as being the indicator for success. Given the breadth of need that there are, you know, I think there are a lot of both academic and pastoral outcomes, along with attendance and all of those other bits and pieces that can be used as indicators for success for some students with special educational needs. And I just kind of hope that that's something that's going to be able to be measured as well. And then just a small bit, I know the breakfast clubs, and it's good to see that that's is rolling out kind of wider. A lot of secondary schools already have breakfast clubs and are providing free breakfasts for hundreds of kids every single morning as well. And not necessarily asking for anything, but I just wanted to say that actually that is, you're talking about where's the 1% coming from. In secondary schools, 1% may be coming from actually stopping some of those wider wraparound cares for secondary schools.
Thank you very much, Martin. Are there any other questions from forum members?
Michelle, I'm happy to sort of just come back on a couple of points,
Okay,
if that's okay. I mean, Martin, you make some very valid points in there. I think on the latter point, in terms of the outcomes and successes, I think what we're getting at there is that we know that where we're making independent placements at quite a significant value, and it's that value for money really, is that we know that the market is profiteering from that. We know it, and there's a limited supply, but huge demand from local authorities driving prices up. And it's about how we can collectively look at how can we in Lincolnshire develop an approach, which is where the mainstream hubs and other opportunities, so the expansion of the special schools that we've obviously invested over 100 million in. It's about some of the preventative services that we've had to try and support schools with those sort of changing needs that we've seen over the years. And it's about how we look at that and how we can be more supportive, and obviously that value for money concept is sort of driven through some of those decisions. So, but we do know that the independent sector is significantly profiteering, and I know the government have referred that they're looking to try and develop measures to manage that. So it's about how we can do that locally and make changes. But it's so it's really particularly focused on that bit. I mean, transformational, we have been, I would say, transformational, Martin, over many years. We've had very much a number of activities. So we are on that journey, that continuous improvement journey. And one hopes that we are on that direction of travel where the national government, in terms of that direction of travel, where they're looking ahead, and hopefully we are aligned, and hopefully with some learning from that, and will help us develop what that next phase looks like. But clearly what we've seen is, with the level of spending demands being placed on that, audit office saying that value for money is not being achieved based on the investment that's being made. Clearly there is going to be quite significant changes in this area, and it's about, as a sector, how we actually respond to that, and how we can say how the local authority can support schools in potentially what would be a new space. And sorry on the wording element, that was taken from the DFE in terms of those narratives, not necessarily Lincolnshire's wording on that, but it's just about obviously the encouragement of that benchmarking, how we can be more efficient. And I know particularly the schools on here, and we know that we are a low-funded local authority in the past, and we've had to try and make our money stretch further. So we know that's something that's sort of ingrained in schools in terms of their financial planning and school operations. So, thank you.
Thank you for your response there, Mark. Tristan?
Just a really short comment, and I don't want to labour things, but I thought that was really refreshing, that comment that Mark said, that he's taken some of the wording from national government, and it was their wording around that. And I think I just wanted to echo that it makes sense now why it's worded as it is in some places, because you have got political words there about the positivity about real terms growth and funding growth. And actually what we're talking about, as we've seen from the figures regarding funding of staffing, is that schools have not got more money, they've actually got less money, and we've got to then make some tough decisions for people. So I think we just need to be careful with words. Obviously, you know, is this the position of the local authority, or is this relaying central government kind of political ambitions? And I think in the sector, just to feed back to Mark, and we know there's a tremendous amount of work going on in local government with making this work for the sector, is that head teachers and governors get it. They get how unsustainable the current special needs system is. And we are making it work at a local level, and we'll be keen to work with you going through this period. But I do echo Martin's words about words matter, and I think if a key part of this is going to be communicating, and not just to people in the system, but to parents and students and pupils who are using the system. And we need to make sure that we get that communication right for them as well going forward, because there will be some real changes about how we do things, and we want to make them as positive as possible. But it might be more positive changes for them, but with fewer staff to do it with. It's going to be tricky to do, and I just think we just need to get that communication right. It would be my comment there. But thank you, Mark. That was very helpful, and thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much there. Mark, did you want to come back on anything Tristan has said or not?
No further comment, no, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both very much. There are some observations I'd like to make as a member of the forum rather than in my capacity as today's chair. And I am aware that there are a number of new forum members that have joined perhaps in the last year or so. And my benefit, I think, of having served on the forum for many, many years now is the platform that it gives us as a sector in Lincolnshire to come together and discuss issues, most notably finance, of course, that affect us in all of the sectors that we have in the county. And it also, very importantly, gives people like Mark and Martin a platform to share the sector's views when they have meetings with the powers that be at regional directorship or with the Department for Education. So I suppose, Mark and Martin, the observations I would make as a secondary head that has been setting whole school budgets running into millions of pounds for more than 15 years now, really do touch upon some of the issues that Martin and Tristan have raised. I have lost sleep and cried tears over my budget this year. And I don't say that lightly. More than any other year that I've been setting a budget, this year was a real struggle, a real struggle. And having brought in a balanced budget, I count myself very, very lucky to have been in that position to finally get the numbers to just about match. And so my personal comment, as I say, not as chair, is one that I found the words from the Department for Education at best insensitive, at worst offensive, in terms of 1% could be found within my budget through productivity gains and smarter spending, because that is what I have been doing for more than 15 years. And to try to suddenly find 1%, I felt that comment, as I say, at worst offensive and almost comparable with Marie Antoinette suggesting that the peasants eat cat or cake, to think that we haven't been doing that for donkey's years. The strategies I'm having to deploy within my school now really are not going to encourage new teachers into the profession. No, yes, we're looking at the big things like redundancy and so on that Martin and Tristan have also mentioned, but even structural changes within the school, upping the allocation again, looking at class sizes again, looking at cutting courses again, looking at alternative staffing arrangements so that it's not a qualified teacher in front of the class again. Having set a balanced budget, my attention almost on the same night has now turned to my projected budget for 26-27 and how I'm going to recoup the projected overspend I'm looking at there. So Martin and Mark in particular, and the importance that this forum provides you with as a platform for seeking the sector's opinion and feelings, I am sure that you will pass those feelings that are coming through loud and clear on to the Department for Education, and I hope beyond hope that they have an impact. I'll get off my soapbox now. Martin.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you to members of the Schools Forum. I just wanted to say, in those moments of silence on the Schools Forum, that says a lot, but also hearing your views, opinions and messages individually and collectively is also really imperative and powerful for us to be able to contextualise and do the things that you would hope that we would do as a local authority, not only present options, strategies and opportunities for consultation, but also to feed back into the policy teams, the unit teams within the DFE, because certainly I think it's worthwhile saying, based on some of the things you were saying there, Michelle, schools, public sector, we're all working through these options at the moment, how to do much more with much less, even when there's an increase, but it still plays out to being less, and that ambition and risk is really challenging. And for Schools Forum, obviously we talk about schools specifically and early year settings, etc. But it is also just worthwhile noting for Schools Forum information that the next 2 to 3 years, we will see quite a lot of transformation within the local government space, local government reorganisation, etc. So I'd really like to say I appreciate and welcome the feedback and those messages, and it helps us formulate our response and messaging in a broader forum as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you also for the chat that's appearing. I can see that we all feel very similar on this. Rachel, I'm not seeing any other hands up. Are you?
No, I'm not seeing any other hands.
Lovely, thank you very much. So thank you. The recommendation is to note the contents of the report. I propose that we have done that. Does anyone dissent? It's looking clear to me, Rachel. Is it to you?
Yep.
Lovely,
Yep.
thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Let's move on to item number 9, the annual report for early years. This was circulated as a supplement on the 26th of June. I'd like to invite Geraldine O'Neill, Sustainability and Development Manager, to present the report.
Thank you, Michelle. So the Early Years Annual Report aims to provide the Forum with an update on the support that we've provided to the early years and childcare sector in Lincolnshire during 24-25, and then also outline our service priorities for the current financial year. The DSG for early years has increased this year since the introduction of the new entitlements for children from 9 months to school age. And in January, we brought the Early Years National Funding Formula report to you, which outlined the quantum of funding that we anticipate to receive in this financial year across each age range. And the overall total funding has been added at the top of page 2 as a reminder for you. The centrally retained budget planned for all those services in this year is 3%, which is below the threshold of 4%. We obviously have a number of statutory duties, and we fulfil those through direct support with childcare providers and professionals. And I've listed 12 of the key priority areas at the bottom of page 2 and onto the top of page 3 for you in the report. Following the annual report we presented to you in June last year, we identified some key priority areas for the service, and this report seeks to explain some of the activities from the work we've been doing in 24-25, where the central budget that we retained for those activities represented 3.12% of the total early years budget. 10 areas were outlined, so I'll just briefly highlight some of the outcomes of the work that we've been focused on. The first was obviously linked to the childcare reforms. We had the introduction of childcare for children of working parents from 9 months in September 2024. At the start of this term, we had 3,222 children accessing those places, which represents 97% of the overall total children with a validated code. And we also have 3,265 children accessing the 2-year-old entitlement, working parent entitlement, which represents 94% of those overall total children with a validated code. And obviously some of those children will be accessing outside of Lincolnshire. We've been keeping a close eye on the children accessing their entitlement using the disadvantage criteria, and thankfully now the DWP have added a factor to the eligibility list that they share with local authorities, which shows those that might be eligible for both the working and the disadvantaged entitlements. That was really important because many local authorities thought that the number of children in that cohort had dropped. We've been doing some analysis in Lincolnshire on that, and it appears that there's a crossover of entitlement access. So based on our information, we still had 83.8% of those children accessing, which is positive and in line with what we would normally expect. Take up for children accessing their universal entitlements for 3 and 4-year-olds is at 87.3%, and we continue to monitor the data to understand the children accessing those places and looking at those that may have barriers to accessing a place. We do have a diverse marketplace and information has been provided for you there on page 4 regarding the total providers registered in Lincolnshire and those that deliver the early years funded places. And that's a combination of private, voluntary, independent providers, childminders and a number of schools. We continue to use a variety of marketing and promotional strategies to engage with the key stakeholders and promote the benefits of early education and the vital role that this plays in school readiness. The second item was in relation to the capital funding programme and what we were doing to address any childcare gaps in Lincolnshire. And I've provided for you a table at the top of page 5, which just shows the number of additional places that we've created through the investment of that additional funding. We have a really committed childcare sector in Lincolnshire, and we've worked together on some fabulous developments, both with the PVI sector and with schools to ensure that we have enough places available for all families. We also did a parent survey this year alongside our annual childcare sufficiency assessment, and 85% of families who engaged with that reported that they were able to secure childcare for their children. There is still, however, a shortfall of childcare places in some areas of Lincolnshire, and we're keeping a careful eye on that, and we're working on a number of initiatives to support those gaps. The school-based nurseries programme is well underway in Lincolnshire, and I'm really pleased that we had 7 schools that were awarded funding through that programme, and that's detailed for you there at the top of page 6. The progress from the wraparound programme and the HAF programme is also provided for you on page 6, and both of these programmes have been hugely successful throughout 2024-25. The funding from the government has been invested in the development of new places across schools in Lincolnshire to ensure that working families have access to before and after school care, and of course that our free school meals children have access to holiday activities and food programme as part of that programme. We've also had a large outside investment for the HAF programme and working with a number of people to look at how that support is being improved in the programme, and work is being undertaken to ensure as many children as possible benefit from accessing those places during the holidays. And statistics in terms of attendance and expenditure has been provided in the report there for you. Items 5 and 6 relate to the infant feeding strategy, which has been developed in partnership with the Parent Infant Foundation, and the new training pathway for childcare providers is available through our training brochure to support providers delivering provision for children aged 0 to 2 years. Items 7 and 8 relate to the work that we've been completing to integrate the early years specialist teachers within our service, with a key focus on adopting a preventative and intervention style approach to support that was more proactive rather than reactive. Obviously, a key aim of this is, of course, to reduce the number of EHCPs in early years and increase the number of team around the child, team around the family in early years settings, recognising that holistic support for families earlier could reduce the need for EHCPs at a later stage. And that's clearly a priority to support the pressures on the high needs spending, as mentioned by Mark in his school funding report. We're also working with early help consultants with a lead for parental conflict to ensure that settings can access resources and training, which is being delivered to the sector. Item 9 relates to the transition and the development of the portal for schools and settings to use, and the learning from the pilot has been used to develop a portal across Lincolnshire for information sharing for resources, and that will be piloted further in this coming year. And finally, we've published our Start for Life offer, both online and via a hard copy, which has been part of the Family Hubs programme, which is given to all pregnant women prior to birth. The Start for Life offer obviously is designed to support the journey through parenthood, and that leads families through a journey identified support available to them. So many sessions are being developed across children's centres and family hubs to engage services and offer families the support that they need as early as possible. In the conclusion on page 9, we've outlined the 7 priorities that we are going to include in our work for this year and propose to include, and these sit alongside our existing corporate targets and statutory duties, which obviously extend wider than those. And then finally, just on page 11, just some key thoughts and future considerations have been included for your awareness, including the potential funding commitments, government-led initiatives around childcare broadly, not just in early years, but for school age as children as well, and to support the childcare sufficiency agenda. Next steps in terms of the spending review, further investment in the rollout, obviously, of the breakfast programme, the school-based nurseries programme, and the continued support and quality assurance that we think will be necessary to ensure good quality, affordable and flexible childcare is available for all families in Lincolnshire. All these investments work together to support children's development and obviously make childcare more affordable and accessible for families. And we'll be awaiting the budget in the autumn term for details of the early years funding rates for and what that looks like for providers across Lincolnshire for 26-27, and a report of course will be provided for the Schools Forum in January 26, setting out Lincolnshire's proposal for the local funding formula for next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Geraldine, for that detailed report there. Do we have any questions from the forum? I'm not seeing any hands up. Rachel, are you?
I'm not seeing any either. Oh, we've just got a message. Andrew, I think Andrew has a question.
Thank you, Geraldine. Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask a question? You did say that there are some deficiencies in Lincolnshire, and I wondered if you provided any map or anything to identify those in Lincolnshire. I couldn't see anything in the report specifically identifying those areas.
Thanks, Andrew.
I'm asking.
Yeah, sure. We do a really detailed annual childcare sufficiency assessment report. So that's why I haven't detailed all of the information in the early years annual report. But certainly I can make that available to the forum when that's ready. We're actually crunching the data at the moment and writing the report at the moment, and then that will go to DLT. So I can ensure that that's shared with School Forum. And I don't know whether it's on the agenda for a future Schools Forum, maybe even in the autumn. I'm not sure, Mark, if we put that on the agenda, but we do have detailed mapping and analysis of the areas where there are childcare gaps, and obviously in terms of where we're investing that capital funding for developing places. So I can certainly share that additional report that we write on that with you.
Thank you, Geraldine. Chair, that would be probably something that would be good to share with us when it's available. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Tristan?
Just to follow up Andrew's comment to say, Geraldine, your team provided that to us when we were looking at expanding our number of places available, and it was really essential, really detailed work. And I just wanted to thank you and the team for your support in looking that across the sector. You can really see how government policy has changed in terms of basically where the money's going, where the emphasis is going in terms of that provision. And I just think in terms of trying to make the sector work as a whole across Lincolnshire, it was really critical that your team was able to talk to us about provision in the area and look at sustainability in terms of very young children accessing that. So I think that'll be good. I think when Andrew sees it, it will make a lot of sense.
Thanks, Tristan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further questions or points of discussion? Again, Rachel, I'm not seeing any further comments. Are you?
I'm not seeing any either, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So thank you for the report and the discussion. The recommendation is to 1, note the contents of the report, and 2, agree the priorities for 2025-26. I propose that we have done that. Does anyone dissent? Looking clear on that, Rachel, would you agree?
Yep, it looks clear to me.
Lovely, thank you very much. So moving on to item 10, Academies and Trust Update. I'd like to invite Mark Popplewell, Strategic Finance Lead, to present the report. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, this is the position as of the 1st of June relating to academy pupil numbers and schools. So this reflects the October 24 census. So since the last effective date, which was presented in the January 25 Schools Forum, one school has converted to academy status. You'll see the table 1, which sets out the current composition of maintained and academy schools by sector across Lincolnshire. 54% of schools are academies, which represents 196 schools, but the number of schools that have converted are large, and particularly in that secondary sector, which then shows that composition of 74% of pupils within academy schools. What we've seen is in process is 5 schools are currently intending to convert to academy status within the next 6 months, and table 2 shows the impact of this, which is shown on page 48 and 49. If those changes took place, that would increase the number of schools to be 55% in the academy, representing nearly 75% of Lincolnshire pupils. Table 3 shows the trusts with most Lincolnshire schools outlined there. There are 34 active multi-academy trusts operating in Lincolnshire, and a total of 161 of those are members of multi-academy trusts. So that represents 82% of Lincolnshire academies. 35 academies are actually single academy trusts, not part of any multi-academy trust structure. Table 4, which is starts at the bottom of page 49, page 50, provides a further breakdown of this in terms of the single academy status and those in multi-academy trusts also. In summary, this doesn't impact Lincolnshire's overall funding arrangements. It's just a different mechanism in terms of how funding is allocated. So there is no financial risk on that. And as part of de-delegation services, etc., those are planned and anticipated as part of that prudent financial planning. That covers everything, Chair. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Do we have any questions of Mark for that report? Or points of discussion? Rachel, that's looking clear to me. Is it to you?
It is, Chairman.
Thank you very much. The recommendation is to note the update. I propose that we have done that. Does anyone dissent? Again, that's looking clear to me. Rachel, is it to you?
It is, yes.
Thank you. Moving on to item 11 then, the work programme. Are there any questions or comments on the work discussion? Sorry, the works programme. You will find that in agenda item 11, which is our agenda for today, and then the proposed work schedule for the next meeting on 2nd of October. Mark?
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to add, obviously, a number of the updates that are looking to be coming out in the autumn period. It's depending at what point. So we may wish to set up a provisional meeting date, possibly sometime in November, of which that can then pick that up. It's in everyone's diaries, of which if that information doesn't come sooner, we've got that as a fallback in terms of picking up some of those things, particularly about the white paper, the education white paper, and any school funding announcements as well. So it might be something that we want to consider, of which Democratic Services can pick that up and provide some options to members.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. That sounds sensible. Do we have any other discussional points? I've got one thing I'd like to say on this. But are there any other points first from members? So my observation on this would be that the first meeting in the autumn term is always the meeting that contains some multitude of very meaty reports and documents for us to read and discuss. Obviously, all of the agenda items contain meaty reports, but that autumn one tends to be one that has quite a lot of the executive summaries from significant areas within our remit as a forum. And I'm aware, of course, that we've got a number of new members now. So whether we did this now, Rachel, or whether you did it remotely once we're off of the meeting, I just wondered, I'm taking advantage of my position as acting chair today, as to whether we were to make the October meeting actually an opportunity for us to come together at County Hall and meet in person and to welcome the new members and really sort of discuss the items that are on that agenda. But I don't want to put pressure on people or to abuse my position of power today. So if that's something that was better done by Rachel in private, then that would be my only observation of the work schedule.
If it's the wish of the forum to hold an in-person meeting, we can arrange that, yes.
Is that something, Rachel, you would prefer to do in private so that people don't fear sorry, I'm so tired, I can't even talk straight. People don't feel peer group pressure.
Yeah,
we could always do a swap, couldn't we, for one of the virtuals and one of the in-persons. It was just an observation. There's quite a lot in that October meeting. And Mark, can I just check with you? You were suggesting that we might not be meeting on the 2nd of October. We might need to fix a date after that as a response to the white paper. Is that part of what you were suggesting there or not?
I was thinking we may need 2 meetings, so
okay.
Still keep the 2nd, and actually that may balance some of the work order as well across the 2. But it was just really in preparation. We're obviously not clear of when these announcements are going to take place. So having something there provisionally in the November will be helpful. And I know it's something that we actually deferred last year's autumn meeting to that November, and that actually helped us, particularly with the schools consultations taking place. Yes, I was looking at having sort of two in there in that autumn period.
And Rachel, I'm seeing that there's a chat going alongside our discussions here. So perhaps we could leave that in your hands to organise with the officers as to what the members would prefer.
Yes, of course.
Is everyone happy with that? Lovely. Lots of nodding people and comments there. Thank you. So in terms of the work process, we're invited to note the contents of the work programme. I propose that we have done that. Does anyone dissent? No, that's looking good to me. Is it to you, Rachel?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That concludes the business of the meeting. Thank you all for attending and for the honour of being the temporary chair this afternoon. Thank you, Martin.
Thanks all.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good summer. I think a well-earned rest. Rachel, have we covered everything?
Yes, we have. The